So yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about sleep with students union today. Especially, I would really like to thank the executives of the union for the kind invitation, and to all of you for making time to be here today. I've got a few family members joining, including my mom and brother and my sister, so the Botchway family and some other family members. So thank you so much for the support. It's very much appreciated. Also, thank you to Professor Matekoli for joining the call today, and my friend from Melbourne. I would like to also really thank Mr. Henry Entry for this opportunity to present, because he's linked me up with TAPA Students Union, and I must say that I'm very impressed with your organization and how well you organize everything that, well, so far I've attended one of your interactive sessions and I learned a lot. So thank you for being so proactive about everything, and even leading up to this talk. It's very much appreciated and it's excellent work, so keep it up. I will start sharing my slides. Can you see my slides, please?
Yes, please, we can.
Okay, thank you very much for confirming that. Sorry, I will have to move that there. Okay. Can you see the projected view?
Yes, please, we can.
Yes,
Okay.
we can.
Okay, thanks very much. So today's talk, as you know, is about why prioritize your sleep. And while thinking about this topic, I think another alternative topic that will caption for today's presentation will be importance of sleep for well-being. So we're gonna touch a bit on that. I'd like to start the presentation by just introducing my path and how I came to studying sleep. And so I grew up in Afinya, which is around Tema in Ghana. I did my bachelor's at the University of Ghana, where I studied psychology. Now, after the bachelor's, I did the master's at in Amsterdam, so at the Free University Amsterdam. And during that time, one of the modules that we studied was on sleep. So it was sleep and consciousness. And I remember being so fascinated about the topic. And so after that class, I actually volunteered with the guest speaker who came to present that topic. And I volunteered with them for a while, learned more about sleep. And then that led me into my PhD, where I focused on sleep. So looking at sleep in young adults who had brain injury when they were kids, and this included young adults who had brain injury from accidents or from falls or from sports-related accidents. So that happened at the University of Melbourne and the Royal Children's Hospital here in Melbourne. And currently, I'm working with Deakin University, where we're working with children who have brain injury, but also epilepsy and autism. So this will be the outline of today's presentation. And I think because the moderator has gone through that, I'm not gonna go through it. But yeah, this is the brief outline. So what is sleep? Sleep can be defined as a naturally occurring state of mind and body characterized by an altered sense of consciousness. and it is characterized by relatively inhibited sensory and muscle activity. So it means that sleep is actually, when we are sleeping, we are not unconscious, we are still conscious, but it's a different state of consciousness. And as we know, we're not feeling so, we can't feel our senses so much when we are sleeping, and we are not moving as much as we do when we are actually awake. I would say that sleep is a universal construct, and sleep scientists over the years have been so fascinated about the topic of sleep. And the reason is, the main question that a lot of sleep scientists have looked at answering is, why is it that humans need to sleep? Why is it that humans and other animals as well need to sleep? If there's so much work that we can do during the day and so much fun that we can have, why do we spend 1/3 of our life sleeping, like someone mentioned in the beginning? Why do we have to do this? And so there's been a lot of research into other species and their sleep behaviors as well. So for example, scientists have in South Africa have shown that these warbirds, fruit bats, sleep with one eye open. And this is a phenomenon where half of the brain sleeps and the other half is awake. And these bats are so clever because they keep the open eye outside, and then they cover the closed eye with their wings so that their predators will actually think they are sleeping, and that's so fascinating. But this behavior has also been identified in chickens, dolphins, and lambs. There are also these orangutans that have been identified to make mattresses before they sleep. Then there are sea otters, and they sleep on their backs. So can I please request that we all mute we all put ourselves on mute, please? We're getting some feedback here. Thank you. So these sea otters wrap themselves in seaweed so that they don't float too far. And sometimes they hold each other's hand when they're sleeping. So it's a really cute sleeping behavior. Then of course there's humans. So we sleep during the night, and sometimes we nap during the day. So sleep is universal. It is something that happens in almost all animal species. So moving on to the neurobiology or neurophysiology of sleep. If sleep is so important and our bodies just goes into this mode without much control, what are the underlying mechanisms of this behavior? We've got a couple of modules that explain sleep, and one of them is what we call the two-process model of sleep. Now this process includes, of course, two processes. So the first process is process S, which we call the sleep-wake homeostasis process. Now, this process is, we can call that a cyclical process. So it happens in cycles, and it happens every 24 hours. And that helps us to create a pressure to sleep. So I want you to think of this as an hourglass. So in the morning, the empty part of the full part of the hourglass is turned up, and then it starts filling up. The bottom part of it. Now there's a neurochemical in the brain that has been associated with this behavior, and that is called orexin. So when we wake up, our orexin levels are very low, and then it increases while we are awake. And things like exercise also really boost our orexin levels. Orexin. That is a chemical called adenosine. So our adenosine levels increase while we're awake, and by 11 p.m. it's at its peak, and it really makes us drowsy and helps us to fall asleep. The second process is process C, which is the circadian process. And I want you to think of this process as a clock, a body clock, and it is actually called our body clock. And this body clock synchronizes with the Earth's 24-hour rotation system. So this picture here really explains the body clock well. So let's start from 6 p.m. Between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m., we see that our body undergoes a couple of physiological changes, including heightened levels of blood pressure and temperature. Then from 9 p.m., our body starts secreting something called melatonin. And melatonin is a neurochemical that helps us to fall asleep. That's its role. And so once it gets dark and our rooms are darker a bit, melatonin levels start to increase. Now by 10:30, our digestive system stops actively processing food and digesting stuff. And that's why it's important to try to eat at least 2 hours before bed so that your body will be ready to go to sleep at the time that it's conditioned to. Then we're sleeping maybe from 10:30, and by 2 a.m., our body is ready to go into the deepest part of sleep. So our body tends to have more of deep sleep between 2 a.m. and 4:30. And then after that, we experience more dreamlike kind of sleep. And then it's morning and the process starts all over again. Now I'm going to show you these two processes in this one graph here. So we've got process S in blue and process C in red. We can see that process C is happening every 24 hours. As our adenosine levels increase with process S, the highest point of it here is around 11 p.m. And then when we sleep, it reduces. So our sleep drive reduces. And deep sleep is very important to helping us reduce the sleep drive. So it's important to give ourselves enough time to be able to get enough deep sleep. So this is what is happening in our body in sync with the rotation of the earth, but what's happening in the brain while we're sleeping. And I would just talk about that briefly with this process and with this module. So this is what we call the flip-flop switch. It's called the flip-flop module of sleep. And so I want you to think of this part as the part of our brain that regulates sleep. And then these are like the neurochemicals that regulate wake. And this one here regulates things like, so we call that orexin, and that regulates things like hunger and some other cravings that we experience when we are awake. So when we are awake, we can see that this part has been blocked, and so we are awake, and there are so many brain areas involved in this active. So as I'm speaking to you, all these areas are active, and that's why I can think of what to say next and all that. On the other hand, when we're sleeping, we see that all these activity-related neurochemicals are blocked by this sleep promoting area. And so we don't feel hungry, for example, when we are awake, because this neurochemical is also blocked. And so that's what happens. In the sleep activity, we can see that it's very centralized within the midbrain and the brainstem, as we call that part of the brain. So sleep is not, so as we sleep is not a continuous process. So sometimes we simplify sleep as, okay, I'm just gonna sleep from this time and I'll wake up at this time. And so it's a continuum, but it's actually not. Studies in sleep have shown that we actually go through different stages of sleep. And as humans, especially adults, we go through these stages every 90 to 120 minutes. And we cycle through these stages on and on. So depending on how long you sleep, you may do 3 or 4 of this cycle in a given night. So we start with stage 1 of sleep, where we are just drowsy and kind of drifting off to sleep. Then we move into stage 2 after about 30 minutes. And in stage 2, we experience a deeper form of sleep. We experience a deeper form of sleep in stage 2, and our brain waves slow down. Then we move into stage 3, where it's very difficult for us to wake up. But this is also the part of sleep where our brain releases the growth hormone that is really important for a lot of functions. And our brain also cleanses itself up during this stage of sleep. So recent studies from 2015 have shown that the brain actually goes through this cleansing process that I'll talk about in another slide. And then we move on to REM sleep, which is the final stage of sleep. And here we have dreams. So around 4:30, we have a lot of dreams. Sometimes people's eyeballs move. And this sleep has been found to be very important for revitalizing yourself. And recent studies have shown that it's really important for mental health, this stage of sleep. So if we are cutting down on it, it can impact mental health. And then also memory and learning has been associated with this stage of sleep. So while I'm going to introduce a few sleep studies, I thought it would be good to let you know some of the things that we look at when we are studying sleep. For example, if you go to a doctor and you say you've got a sleep problem right now, they're going to check some of these things. So we look at your sleep time and your wake time. We look at something called the sleep onset latency, which is how long it takes people to fall asleep. And if we consider it to be problematic if someone is taking about 30 minutes and more to fall asleep. And that is problematic, especially if it goes on for 2 weeks to about a month. And we've got wake after sleep onset, which is how many times you wake up during the night and the duration of the wake as well. And that is also problematic if it's above 30 minutes, and especially when it's above 1 hour. Then we look at how long you sleep, so the duration and the quality of your sleep, so the efficacy of the sleep quality. And we look at the percentage that you spend in the REM stage and the non-REM stages of sleep. So what kind of sleep problems are there in humans in general? The common one, the most common one is what we call insomnia, which is a difficulty to fall asleep or remain asleep. So you keep waking up in the middle of the night. And this usually leads to a feeling of just being unrefreshed in the morning. The other type of sleep problem, which is quite prevalent, is daytime sleepiness. And this is just a difficulty to maintain wakefulness. And you just fall asleep maybe in the library or just at work. You just need to rest up a bit on the table. Then there is sleep apnea, which is not very much talked about, but quite common. And this is when people repeatedly have problems breathing during sleep. And this can be, it can lead to a lot of health complications if not treated, because it's linked with sometimes cardiovascular problems and a lot of other health complications. Then we've got a group of sleep problems that we call parasomnias, because they are abnormal behaviors that happen during sleep. So example is sleepwalking, which looks quite funny here, but it can be quite dangerous depending on what the person is doing while they're doing this. So why do we need good sleep? And a lot of research has been done to try to answer this question. And collectively, we know that sleep is important for learning and cognitive development. So especially in children, their learning can be really impeded if they are not getting enough quality sleep. It's also important for mental health and well-being, also for promoting your growth, body and brain restoration. And then there is a recently discovered system known as the glymphatic system, which was found in 2015. And that system has been known to help to cleanse the brain, like I said, cleanse the brain of neurotoxic waste. And this process has been found to be very active during sleep and almost inactive when we are awake. So our brain needs deep sleep to do this cleansing. And if our brain doesn't get the opportunity to do that enough, it can lead to neurodegenerative conditions such as Alzheimer's and dementia when we are older. So what does good sleep look like in humans? These recommendations are based on studies that have been conducted in very large populations around the world. And so the recommendations are generally that young adults, so I believe I'm talking to a lot of young adults, I'm going to focus on this part, but young adults need about 7 to 9 hours of sleep every 24 hours. And we can see that our sleep duration and the recommendation actually decreases with age. And that is actually a natural process, because naturally our body tends to sleep less when we are awake, and our body tends to spend different proportions of sleep in those stages that I showed before. So if that is the kind of amount of sleep that is recommended for us, what happens if we are not getting enough quality sleep or enough duration of sleep? there are things like long-term sleep problems. So for example, if you are experiencing insomnia for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and it's not treated, then it can become a chronic condition, and that can be quite frustrating. Then mental health problems such as depression and anxiety can be happen because of sleep problems. So you just feel very irritated emotionally, and it's just because you're tired and you need some sleep. Physical health problems such as obesity and cardiovascular conditions can also occur. And then sometimes it really affects our productivity. And I think that a lot of us can relate to that, that when we are really tired, you just can't stay on that page or that topic that you want to finish. And of course, if we are not feeling as healthy or vitalized, then we are not really ready to socialize with people. So it can impact on our quality of life, but also how much work we can do, how much money we can bring in. Okay. I thought to just talk to you about some studies that have been done on sleep within the Ghanaian context, just to contextualize it a bit. And so this study was done in 2017, and they looked at the association between sleep and cardiovascular risk in Ghanaian population. Well, I think that's very broad because there were just 263 people in this study. They included people from rural and urban Ghana, but I should note that a lot of the people in this study were in rural areas, so very less people were in urban areas, and I think there was about 70% in rural parts of Ghana, and a lot of the people were also just part-time employees, and a lot of them were also about 70%, more than 70% of them had educational level below uni or vocational tertiary training. So that is just to contextualize the results and to show that they probably have more flexibility in their schedules. So what the study showed was that these people have really good sleep, and their sleep efficiency was just really excellent, because with sleep efficiency, anything above 80 is considered very good. And then also what they showed was that people who slept less than 7 hours had a lower risk to cardiovascular problems. And this is very opposite to what is expected, because the people who slept more than 9 hours had a higher risk to cardiovascular problems. And so the authors of this paper try to explain why this probably happened, and they think that maybe it's because because of the profile that I described. So the work profile and their educational level, not the educational level, but how that plays into their schedule, and how they've got flexible work schedule. So probably we're able to sleep. They are less stressed, essentially. They are less stressed. And so I think that it will be really interesting to see whether this results can be replicated in the working class in Ghana, or maybe more people in urban areas, so that we know if maybe we've got a protective genetic protective factor to this problem. But it's a really interesting study. This other study looked at the relationship between alcohol consumption and sleep deprivation among Ghanaians. And they used this data sets, the Ghana Demographic Health Survey that was collected in 2008, sorry. In that study, they showed that about 84% of the people in the study, which is a really large sample size, so they had about 9,000 people in the study, and a lot of them had more than 7 hours of sleep, so 84% is really high. And they found that people who had the opportunity to have more than 7 hours of sleep were below 30. They were usually women, they were rural residents, they had a higher socioeconomic status, and they were, most of them were employed, were non-smokers and non-drinkers. And the main thing, and also most of them had a bed and a bed net. And I think that's quite important in our context, because mosquitoes can be a problem for sleep. And finally, they showed that people who were not drinking had 8 times better sleep than people who were drinking. So alcohol was not good for sleep in this study. So I'm going to focus a bit on young adults because I know a lot of us are young adults. And from this picture, we know that as young adults, we should be getting about 7 to 9 hours of sleep, but what is actually shown in studies. This study here was conducted again in Ghana by Lawson et al. In 2019, so just last year. And they looked at sleep patterns and self-reported academic performance in medical students at the University of Ghana. And
I said I can do because I've done it before.
We all know that medical students are quite busy, and we know they are sleeping. From this study, they show that they looked at sleep quality in 153 University of Ghana students who were young adults, and they showed that most of them had an average sleep of 6 hours. They had a lot of sleep problems in that study, and so data very common in that sample, so it was 78%. They also had fragmented sleep in about 62% of the sample, and that was mainly because people were getting up in the night to go to the washroom. They also had poor sleep quality reported in 56%, which is quite high. Poor sleep quality in that sample was associated with morning tiredness, and I think we can all relate to this, and daytime sleepiness, so just sleeping off in the library or on the job, and then also poor academic performance and sleepwalking. This other study was also conducted in Ghana and in the University of Ghana, and they looked at the relationship between stress the business students at the university, part-time business students at the University of Ghana. So these are people who were working and studying. And what they found was that changes in sleep habits and changes in eating habits combined with working and studying was the common source of stress for students. The changes in their pattern maybe during exams and all that really impacted on their stress levels. And this final study here was done in Norway, and it included 52 young adults. And they were interested in understanding the relationship between, they wanted to know if people are sleep deprived for 2 hours, for 2 hours than their normal sleep, whether it impacts their emotions and their cognitive function. And so they got these young adults to sleep less. So they asked them, so if you sleep at 10 p.m., go to sleep at 12 a.m. 12 a.m. And so they pushed their sleep back forward or back by 2 hours. And what they found was that reducing their sleep by 2 hours was associated with reduced cognitive function. So they were more reactive, their reaction time was slow, they were very slow in thinking, and they were more impulsive, so they didn't think through their decisions well. And they also were very reactive to negative emotions. So sleep impacts emotions, academic performance, stress levels, and cognitive function in young adults if you ever get say that is quite different from the story we saw of the general population. It looks like the young adult population is having quite a different profile of sleep, and we can understand because of our busy schedules compared to our older people's schedules. So what are some of the factors that impede sleep in young adults? We've got things like work and social responsibilities. So for those of us that have kids, we understand that it's quite difficult to have a regular sleep schedule when your kids need something. Also social responsibilities like events can also really, we know that as young adults, we are everywhere and we want to do everything, and that can really impact on our sleep. There's also late social behaviors like midnight calls and parties that we keep up with. And this is quite dangerous, especially for midnight calls, because when you're on your phone emits blue light, and blue light reduces your melatonin levels. And as I said, melatonin is what helps us to fall asleep. Also alcohol, Not having a routine is a big one because of the body clock that I showed you. So it just messes up your body clock. And then stressful life situations. And we can all relate to this. There are sometimes very stressful situations that we can deal with and that can really impact on our sleep. Then also illnesses, especially if you have an illness that is related to pain, that can really impact on sleep. So we are in this pandemic now, and I thought it would be good to talk a bit about how sleep is affected during COVID right now. So a couple of studies have been done on sleep in COVID, and I'm just going to talk about two of them. This study was done in the USA, and they collected this data, I think, between March and April, sometime, I'm not sure of that. But it was definitely this year. And what they did was they looked at the relationship between COVID fear. So we know that we are all afraid of getting COVID, well, at least I am. And people are worried about their future, so career prospects, their businesses are going down because of this pandemic. So there are fears around COVID. And because of that, some people, especially people with mental health problems, are quite suicidal at this time. So what they found in this study is that COVID fears, so just the fear associated with the pandemic is associated with suicidal thoughts. But when they put sleep, so insomnia, having trouble sleeping in this module, that completely accounts for the relationship. So we see that the p-value here is less than, it's not even close to 0.005, which is what we consider significant. So what it tells us that people who are having frustration and fear over COVID would only go on, like, whether they will go on to have suicidal thoughts or not depends on how well they are sleeping. So if you know somebody who is very worried and they are not sleeping because of COVID, then it's quite important to pay attention to them, give them some social support, some moral support, and also maybe some medical help if you think they need it, if you think they are really at that verge of losing it. Then this other study was conducted in Austria, Germany, and Switzerland. So they collected data in these people affected with COVID in the midst of very strict restrictions, which is an example of what we are having here right now in Australia, in Melbourne, where we can't even go out for more than 1 hour a day. And what they found is that social behavior has really reduced in a lot of places around the world. So people are not seeing their friends as much. And so we've got more flexible time to ourselves. So you would think that maybe people will be sleeping better because we've got so much time. But what is actually happening is that people are sleeping poorer. And that is because people are worried. There are a lot of thoughts on people's minds. So that is impacting on their sleep quality. And what they found was that exposure to natural light, so just going out during the day to have a bit of a walk to get some sunshine and physical exercise, help to improve the quality of people's sleep. So move on to the conclusions for this presentation. And I think I will not do justice to this topic if I don't tell you how to prioritize your sleep. So I can't tell you everything that can go wrong without giving you some solutions. So how can we prioritize our sleep? And as I showed you in that clock, our sleep outcome is impacted by everything we do from the time we wake up. So during the day, let's think about what we are eating, because let's try to get in enough fruits and vegetables and good food so that we can sleep well in the night. But it's recommended that we don't eat at least 2 hours before bedtime so that our digestive system can settle. And then we can sleep better. Also with drinking, you saw that with the University of Ghana students, business students, a lot of them were waking up in the night, and the recommendation in the night because they needed to use the washroom. And the recommendation around that is that we try to drink about 3/4 of the water that we'll drink during the day by 1 p.m. So try to drink a lot of that at the first half of the day. And then so that you drink less towards the end of the day, and then you can sleep through the night without having to wake up too much to go to the washroom. Let's take care of our minds, because stress and worry can lead to sleep problems, and sometimes things are just difficult, but let's just get the social support that we need, and just yeah, give it all to God. Reduce alcohol, or avoid alcohol and smoking, because that impacts on sleep. Let's try to exercise, and it's recommended that we do exercise in the morning or before evening meals. Let's try to get some natural light in every day. So it's not healthy to just stay indoors all day studying, or just go from your house into the car and then not go out of the office anytime during the day. To get just even maybe 10 minutes outside in the sun is helpful. And naps are healthy, but not naps more than 30 minutes can affect night sleep in most people. And maintaining a regular routine is so important, because our body clock needs that to understand what is happening. Otherwise, it's just confused. And then close to bedtime, let's try to make sure that noise levels are reduced, our room temperature is good, and let's try to use the bedroom for sleep. So for example, it's not very healthy to have television in the bedroom, because your brain is not able to associate that space with sleep very well. Light conditions in the night can also be are also important. So let's keep the lights dim in the night, and also not do too much stimulating activity. So the blue light exposure on the phone can really impact how much sleep you get, because it reduces melatonin. And it's recommended that we stay off our phones at least 1 to 2 hours, phones and screens, 1 to 2 hours before bedtime. Now, there's also the sleep timing and the duration, which we need to keep in mind. So 7 to 9 hours is healthy. And if you are not able to make that during the week, then you try to catch up on that during the weekends. So I hope that I've been able to explain sleep and its biological and physiological importance to the body, brain, and our overall well-being. We have learned in this presentation that Ghanaians in rural settings and those with lower level of education and employment flexibility have really good quality sleep, and it seems to be a protective factor against the impacts of short sleep. But as I said, it will be interesting to do a similar study in the very busy population in Ghana, so the urban and full-time workers, to see what the trend is like before we can know if we are really protected against these cardiovascular problems. Also, young adults need about 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night, but we know that social and economic responsibilities can impede us, increase risk of reduce our productivity, and impact other areas of our function. COVID-19 has also compounded stress levels, and COVID-19 leads to reduced quality of people because they are worried about tomorrow. But let's try to get some exercise and sunlight, because that has been found to help. And let's just try to not worry too much. Let's leave it to God for those of us who believe in God, and do our best, and everything is going to be fine. And I'd like to leave you with this thought of this clock here. Let's try to use this clock for our benefits. Let's try to work around with it so that our bodies can maximize the benefits of sleep, and then we can be more productive and vibrant to the people that need us. So thank you very much for your attention and your time, and I'm happy to take questions.
So Doc, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so this is Samuel again. My question is about, so what would be the advice if you do not get consistent sleep? Say you sleep 6 hours and then another 6 hours. Would it then be helpful to, I mean, the question is, can you catch up on the sleep that you don't sleep? or not? Can you sleep 6 hours, and then on some other days sleep maybe 8 hours, 10 hours? Does that help or not?
Thank you. That's a really good question. Thanks very much, Sam. So if our body tends to have the best benefits if we are able to sleep like 7-9 hours, like I said. So having 6 hours would impact your performance on that day, and catching up on it is recommended, and it's helpful if you can. And it's definitely better than not catching up on that sleep and just going on that 6-hour trajectory every single day. Did that answer your question?
Thanks, Edith. Yeah, thanks.
Please, okay, thank you. Do we have other questions? I see that Kezia has raised her hand. Kezia, can you unmute yourself and let us hear your question, please?
Okay. Madam, please, you talked about the fact that sleep doesn't have a specific pattern, but for personally, I've noticed that when we're in school, I used to wake up, let's say, around 6 a.m. So I sleep usually at 10. So it continued in that pattern. But during lockdown period, I was usually having classes online, so I wasn't sleeping at all. I would stay up and use night bundle to attend the online classes. And right now, I'm unable to go back to my usual sleep pattern of sleeping around 10 p.m. and waking up at 6. Like, I'm now used to staying up very late and I'm unable to sleep at all. What do you suggest I do to help?
Okay, well, that's a really interesting question, Kezia, and thanks for sharing your experience. So yeah, this COVID-19 has thrown us into a lot of chaos, and I'm sorry that it's affecting your sleep in this way. What I would recommend, so at the moment, do you still need to stay up late to catch up on lectures?
For now, I've finished most of my courses, so
Okay.
I don't need to stay up late, except I'm not able to sleep at all.
Okay. So I would recommend that when you get up and you're not, in the night when you're not able to sleep, so let's say it's 10 p.m. like your usual and you're trying to sleep and you're not able to sleep, I recommend to get out of bed. And just sit in a dark space. Sit in, maybe if you've got like a chair in your room or maybe a couch, just sit in a dark space without using your phone, because that can further reduce your melatonin levels and prevent you from sleeping. And maybe read a book, do something that does not involve a screen, do something that helps you to relax. If it's listening to relaxing music without interacting with the screen, that can help. And what you can do is you try to, so that's one thing, trying to get out of bed, and then when you feel sleepy again, you go back. So the reason for that is that staying in bed keeps you frustrated, and so that can impact on that can make you more agitated and worried about not sleeping. So getting out and just distracting yourself a bit and then going back when you're ready to sleep. And then the other thing you can do is just, so now you've messed up the circadian clock. Well, let's say COVID has. And so you need to train your body to get back there, and it's possible to do that. And what you can do is that maybe look at what time sleep is coming to you now. So maybe if you think that now you're just sleepy around 12 instead of your usual 10, settle in that and then try to gradually move back to 10. So you do that the first day, maybe the first 3 days you go to sleep at 12, and then later the next 3 days you try to go to sleep at 11:30, next 3 days at 11, next 3. So you do it gradually that way. And try to incorporate more relaxing activities in your night routine so that your body will be ready for sleep, and exercise during the day. So just a walk or something would help. Yeah, thank you very much for that question, Kezia. So Kasa's hand is raised.
Thank
Okay.
you. So,
Thank you, Doc. I have two questions. The first
Okay.
question is, you mentioned about our body clock and also we should have a constant sleep routine. So let's say you are a worker, like you work during sometimes in the night or so. How often can one change the sleeping routine? And the second question is it advisable to be sleeping, let's say, in beds? Like advice for young adults is recommended that we sleep between 7 and 9 hours. So let's say you are going for 7 hours in the 24 hours, then you sleep the first 20, like 4 hours. Let's say in the night, maybe during the day you can sleep 3 hours. So is it recommended to sleep in bed, or you have to go take everything at a go? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the question, Kasa. That's a great question. So to answer your first question about changes, how often it's, so the changes in routine question, so it is usually, sorry, I'll take the second question, I'll come back to the first question. So sleeping in bits. If you sleep 4 hours during the night, you see how I talked about the sleep stages, the 4 sleep stages. What happens is then that you're not getting enough or the recommended amount of sleep you need in each stage. So you're actually cutting down on the quality of sleep you're getting in each stage. And then when you sleep during the day, again, the quality is not the same because you've got daylight coming in, but also because your body clock, which is based on our evolutionary wiring of us as humans, is not used to sleeping at that time. It's not going to benefit the most from that sleep. So while it may be helpful because maybe you can't do anything else about it, it is highly recommended that you try to get your sleep throughout the night, like in the time that the body is ready and happy to sleep. Okay, and then about changes in routine, I know that is a real issue, especially in shift working people. And so routine is important for the body because it helps the body not get too confused about what you're doing at a time. But if you've got changes in routine and it's really something that you can't help because that's the nature of your job, then it helps to maybe catch up on your sleep days that you've got like a normal day, maybe on your day off or on the weekends. Did I answer your question, please?
Yeah, like the change routine, I was asking because maybe how often, let's say, can you switch the routine, let's say 2 weeks, maybe some weeks the shifts are very serious, sometimes they can make it 3 days, then off, then night. So how often is it advised to switch those routine? Maybe is it advisable maybe to go for 2 weeks in the day, then 2 weeks in the night? So about the shift, that was what I was asking about. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. So it's a complex question because I know that within the work context, when those routines are given, when those schedules are given, it's very hard for you to change it. So I'll try to be helpful here. It is not advisable to be changing your routine constantly. So every 2 weeks you go into a different routine because again, your body clock gets quite messed up like that. And maybe with time you start experiencing sleep problems. But also there's been a lot of studies looking at sleep in shift workers. And what we see is that changing the routine impacts on the sleep quality that you get. And sleeping during the day to catch up with it is not quite as refreshing as you would feel if you got the opportunity to maintain a routine and sleep through the night. So that's my answer to your question. So I know it's difficult, and so there are a lot of companies that think about that, especially things like air companies, so airlines. We're constantly changing the report, but try to get good sleep at night when you can, when your schedule allows it, and try to prioritize that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any other questions? Do we have any other question, please?
Hello, Doc. This is a follow-up question.
Okay.
Okay. Is it let's say about your body clock? Can you, because mostly I like staying up in the night, and so can you make it the way that you sleep during the day, then you're active during the night? Kind of, can you have a different kind of sleeping pattern apart from the normal one that humans we are used to, like sleeping the night and working the day? Can you turn it the other way around? Is that advisable to do so? Thank you.
Thank you. The simple answer to that is no. So your clock is used to, your body is wired physiologically and biologically to get the best kind of sleep that it needs if you're able to work in this schedule. So not doing that and staying up at night is not helpful. And some studies have looked at people that maybe stay, so if for example you are a watchman and so you have to stay up throughout the night, or you work in a factory where you work night shift, and then you come back and you sleep 8 or 9 hours. Studies have shown that that sleep during the day, even though it's the same duration, is not as restorative as if somebody slept 8 or 9 hours, 7 or 8 hours during the night. Thank you, Casa.
Thank you, Doc.
Okay. I think we don't have any more questions. So I would like to really thank you all again for your audience, and for the moderators of today's session. Again, to Mr. Henry Entry for having me over. Thank you very much for your support and for listening. Obeng, did you have a question?
Yes, Doc, I do. Hello?
Okay, so what?
Doc, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yeah, Doc, it's a nice presentation. Let me commend you first. You've done an amazing job. Yes, and the first thing I would like to talk about is night shifts. Night shifts. I know. The other guy talked about. Was asking about night shifts. I want to find how many hours of sleep do I need during the day so that I can comfortably work in the night, and also be sure that I'm not running my body down to a breakdown or something. I don't know if you're getting where I'm coming from. Like, how many hours of sleep is okay for me, for my body, and for my system?
Okay. Thank you for that question. And is this because you work night shifts all the time, or do you get some time when you work day shifts?
I have times where I work day shifts. Currently, I'm on a 2010 roster where I'm doing 10 days, and then 10 nights, and then 10 off days.
Okay, thank you. So the simple answer to your question is that we need about 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Because of the study that showed that getting more sleep, so getting more than 9 hours of sleep was associated with cardiovascular risk in some Ghanaians, right? I wouldn't recommend to sleep too long if you lost your, so I won't say that, oh, because you're not getting as good sleep during the day as you would if you were sleeping at night, then you should sleep for 11 hours, for example, right? Because from the evidence, it doesn't look like that is healthy. And that's also been shown in other populations around the world that very long sleep can be quite problematic. So I would say that when you sleep during the day on your current roster, just try to get your 7 to 9 hours. So be within that range. And on the times when you are actually on day shifts, prioritize your sleep so that you can maximize your night sleep. Yeah, so try to get the good restorative sleep in the night during those 2 weeks when you are on day shift. And also if you can catch up on off days, that will be good. And I believe a lot of you are mining workers or preparing to get into the mines. So trying to prioritize that weekend sleep and days when you are not on night shifts will be helpful. Does that answer your question, Obin?
Yeah, I think so. But I was
Okay.
I was hoping you please maybe 5 hours is fine. You're not killing yourself or something.
Yeah, unfortunately not. Try to get the 7 to 9 hours if you're sleeping during the day.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it seems I'd get back
Mhm.
to the house and I'll
Mhm.
be able to sleep around 9:30 thereabout. And then
In the
by
morning.
2 o'clock I'm up. Yeah, yeah, 9:30 in the morning. And then
Okay.
by
And
two
so you
o'clock,
get up because you want to, or you get up because your brain wants to?
because my brain wants to, I think.
Okay. Yeah, maybe when you get up, just try to do something relaxing, and sometimes when our eyes flick open, we just need to turn a bit and try to relax to help us go back to sleep. But try to increase that a little bit if you can. But I think that because the daytime sleep is not as restorative, trying to get more sleep during the weekends and during your off days and when you are actually on day shifts will be the best approach.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. We are a bit over time, so I think I'll turn it over to the moderator of the session. Wisdom, can you hear me? Can anyone hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can hear.
Okay. So I'm not sure if the moderators of the meeting are still on. Okay. I think that we will end the meeting because I can't hear the moderators. I don't know if it's the internet from my end, or they actually can't hear me. So,
Hello.
hello,
Hello.
hello, hi,
Doug, Dr. Edith, this is Kenneth. I'm on board. Kenneth Aka.
hi, Kenneth.
I've been here. I believe Mr. Henry and that of Mr. Samuel are out now, but I'm still here.
Okay.
Thank you for the details of the entire topic. It has been a very difficult and a challenging aspect of our human life, sleep, and how to get the best out. First of all, I would like to thank you for being available to give us your take and give us what is actually happening in that section of field. And it has been great listening to you. One important lesson I was looking at from the very beginning till now has been on the importance of the sleep. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, importance of sleep, where you touched on its usefulness in cognitive development as well as the body and the brain restoration. That section has gotten me thinking since the time you began teaching the entire thing. Because if for young adults, we are looking at 7 to 9 hours, which it's really difficult achieving that kind of duration for very, very difficult. Me like this, I'm a research assistant and I'm more into field works as well as lab works, which actually makes it difficult to get, let's say, a maximum of even that duration, which is the 7 to 9. But we try as much as possible to still stick to the entire thing. Now, this cognitive development, I just want to share my lesson and something I want all of us to actually look at. Then a little advice to all of us. This cognitive development, if it is for brain development from the very beginning, looking at the stages of the sleep that you talked about, the 4, where we have the light sleep, the deeper sleep, the deepest, as well as the rapid eye movement section. Now, looking at your entire slide, you touch on where there is improvement of the ability of the brain to work, as well as memory functionality with doing the rapid eye movement. Now, from the basic and the little I know, we medically they say we use about 1/3 of our entire life sleeping.
Yeah.
And if that is the case, and the rapid eye movement section where there is a very tiny short of period for that section, which is going to help improve our memory as well as our body and help us in growth process, then it means that we have to take it we have to take it into consideration. Because that section, I don't know whether you get me. If they say that medically it takes about just the least of time for the entire duration of our sleep process for the rapid eye movement. And if it is going to help develop our brain memory, then I think we have to take much consideration into finding the best of our sleep cycle in terms of our routine that works for every single individual to be able to achieve it. Because that 7 to 9 hours, only God knows. It is dangerous and it's difficult to achieve that. But that cognitive development section is making it interesting for all of us to take particular note into.
up on that. It's interesting that you picked up on that because there is emerging work, mostly from the US, that especially in young adults, and they've looked at the importance of that section of sleep, so the REM sleep, for longevity across the lifespan and mental health. And they found that there's a very strong association between how much of that sleep, so REM sleep, you get in your mental health. So especially in young adults, but also it predicts longevity in young adults. So especially between the ages of, I think, 25 to 40, the amount of sleep that you get during that period is very important for your mental health later and your overall health. So it's really interesting that you picked up on that.
Thank you very much for the entire details. My final words on for all of us is for us to be keen and pay attention to our routine, as you said that we should do, like the regular exercise, looking at the time before sleep and the meal routines before sleep, doing everything possible to achieve the best out, because that thing is still in my head, how we can actually achieve the improvements of the brain to help us function very well, since it is our entire brain that we are using to actually do most of the things we do daily. Thank you very much, Dr. Edith. Thank you very much. And I thank all the leadership. On behalf of the leadership, we would like to thank the entire management of Awesome for putting these seminars together, especially today's one too. I would like to advise all of us that we young adults, we should take into consideration attending some of these important seminars, because you sometimes getting over becoming successful and increasing in your field of expertise doesn't actually come about how much information you've actually developed in your section. It comes from some of these very few seminars that you attend. It actually improves your leadership skills. It gives you a lot of intelligence in every section, as well as help you balance your time utility, making you improving your critical thinking ability, as well as improving your capability to solve issues. And it has nothing to do with your 5 years or your 10 years experience you've gotten in the field. It's based on some of these seminars. So I'd like to encourage all of us to take into particulars the interest and the anger to actually come and enjoy some of these seminars and learn more, because someone can actually reduce all the information you could have spent time into researching to give it to us as you've done today. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Kenneth, and God bless you too. And thanks everyone for staying through. And sorry that we've run a bit over time, but I really appreciate your audience.
Okay. Whether Mr. Samuel is around, I'm not seeing them, and Mr. Henry too.
And all the best.
All right. Hello. Sorry, I was experiencing a little challenge, but I'm back. Thank you, Mr. Kenneth, for covering for me. Okay, so Dr. Botchway, on behalf of Awesome TACPA Student Forum, we would like to thank you for taking time to enlighten us on the topic, the need or why we should prioritize sleep. We also like to thank all our guests, Mrs. Dorothy Botchway, Mr. Felix Botchway, Mrs. Diana Botchway, Professor Marty Colley, if I got it right, Lydia Kui, Tamara Thomas, and Mr. Edmond Sapon for making time to be with us during this webinar. We'd like to thank all dignitaries, particularly Mr. Henry Entry, for giving us this opportunity to learn more concerning our professional development. Finally, I'd like to thank everyone for making it. Thank you very much. I hope that you enjoyed and you learned a lot from this webinar. So without much ado, I'd like to call to end this meeting and say that we really enjoyed everything that you told us. Thank you very much. And
Thank
have
you.
a great day.
And have a good day too. So I'm going to end the meeting. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.